just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome to South Coast Tonight. I'm Marcus.
And I'm Chris.
And we're joined now by Republican gubernatorial candidate Geoff Deihl. Rep. Deihl, how are you?
Great, Marcus and Chris. Thanks so much for having me on.
Hey, congratulations on winning the Republican nomination. Onwards and upwards, right?
Thank you. Yeah. Look, I've been here before. In 2018, I ran for U.S. Senate, was able to win the nomination. I wasn't successful, obviously, in winning that U.S. Senate race, but I did have a chance to earn almost 1 million votes and talk to a lot of great people across the entire Commonwealth and really understand, obviously, a lot of the issues that are facing them. And I think now with the economy and the situation it's in, it's imperative that people make the proper choice for governor for the state. And I'm really excited about the opportunity in 3 weeks to earn that title as well.
So Geoff, I was there for your kickoff. You kicked off right here, for people who don't remember, right here at the bridge, at the park, here in Fairhaven, New Bedford. And back then, I thought you ran a heck of a campaign. I mean, you bested two really strong Republicans in that election to then get the nomination. I thought you did a great job as a candidate representing the Republican Party and representing a lot of people really in that race against Elizabeth Warren. Yes. So I do think you did a great job in that campaign.
Well, thank you. And it's not, again, it's not even about Republicans or even Democrats. It's about the entire people of the Commonwealth. I think right now we're seeing a campaign that I'm focused on is making sure that people have the economic freedoms that they expect. Right now our state's collected over $8 billion in excess tax revenue, and the legislature, for some reason, is kicking and screaming about trying to return $3 billion back to people based on an 85 statute that requires, the overpayment be returned. But also I want to make sure that parents have more of a freedom for choosing the education their kids get. If the public school system their kids are in is not working for them, or if parents aren't able to, again, have a say in what the curriculum is or even have a voice at the school board meetings, I want the state dollars to follow the kids, whether it's going to be to a private school or whether it's even homeschooling. I think we're seeing a doubling of homeschooling in Massachusetts over the last 2 years since the pandemic. Reading and math skills are really down right now, and we need parents I think parents want schools to be doing a better job, and if they feel like they can, vote with their feet by where their kids end up going, I think that'll create the competition in the education marketplace that's needed to cause the improvement. And finally, I think healthcare freedom. I think one of the things that really got me to run for this seat in the first place was the fact that a lot of people were being fired for getting, not getting a vaccine that was required by the state. And again, I got vaccinated. I'm not anti-vaccine. I just felt that some people either developed natural immunity if they were first responders working out during the pandemic when the viruses were out there and the vaccines weren't available. They may have developed natural immunity, or there may be underlying health issues that they have that just made it very dangerous to get a vaccine. So I chose my running mate, Leah Allen, who's a nurse who was breastfeeding her child while she was serving in the hospital. She was pregnant during the COVID situation, working on a COVID ward, in fact. When she had her baby, the vaccines came out, and she was worried about the effect of the vaccines on her child, so she didn't get vaccinated, and she was fired for it. So on day one, I'm going to return every state worker to the jobs that they had before if they want to come back, if they were fired for the vaccine mandate. We're going to make sure that is the policy going forward, respecting people's health care choices. Obviously, this state is very big on my body, my choice. We're going to make that the law of the land when it comes to vaccines as well.
So, Rep. Deihl, I'm glad you brought that up. So, I got a couple of questions. One, there was a debate last week. What were your overall thoughts on that? Two, I think, to be frank with you, as someone who is, I'm a registered Democrat, right? But
sure.
I'm a pro-choice guy, and I think that most people in the Commonwealth are pro-choice. And I didn't feel like your your answers on abortion and protecting abortion rights were really strong enough. I know you're pro-life. I know you personally don't believe in abortion, but most people in the Commonwealth do. And I think it's I don't know if it's enough to say I'm not going to do anything to interfere with Roe that's been codified. I feel like there's a lot of people in the Commonwealth that feel as though there should be a fortification of Roe v. Wade in state law, and Massachusetts should also be a place for people fleeing other states where abortion has been made illegal, where women who have to choose between being forced to give birth or going to jail could come. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I thought I made it pretty clear that the Roe Act has pretty much settled abortion in Massachusetts. Governor Baker had two objections to elements that I agreed with him on. Low age of non-parental notification, and also the fact that a child, after they stripped out in the Roe Act, Section 12P of Mass General Law 112, basically saying that a baby who's born from a failed abortion does not have to be given medical attention. To me, that's infanticide. So that was the concerns I had. Charlie Baker agreed with them, but they were overridden by the legislature, and now it's the law of the land. I'm sure you know the governor does not make law in Massachusetts. The legislature does. So, but
if you're the governor, there's going to be laws passed by the legislature that are going to hit your desk, and you do make them law by signing it. So if there
but Marcus, also that if I don't sign it, or if I decide to veto it, I can be overridden just like Charlie Baker was overridden. You know that the will of the Massachusetts right now lays in the legislature, who makes those laws and ultimately decides them in the end of the day. So again, I think that there's an attempt to try to make it seem like abortion's at risk in Massachusetts. It's not. And in fact, if you want to talk about someone who cares about women's rights, that's me. My wife, she has a business that we own together, was shut down. Her business was closed. Maura Healey did nothing to protect people's rights when the pandemic shut that down, and I think illegally. Secondly, I think also my daughters had to wait to go back to school much longer than they should have. My two daughters did not get the education they want. Where was Maura Healey standing up for our children in Massachusetts who wanted to get back to school sooner? And even the mask mandates went late into last year when we knew that wasn't helping them. And my running mate, again, a nurse who was fired because she didn't want to get vaccinated and have an negative effect on her child. So women's rights is beyond just abortion. It's all sorts of things. I'm the biggest champion of women's rights. Maura Healey's never stood up for those people, those women who lost those rights during the pandemic.
We're speaking with Geoff Deihl, who's a candidate for governor, Republican candidate, the nominated Republican candidate for governor of Massachusetts. Geoff, you spend time in the legislature. You know how frustrating it can be as a Republican up there with such a small number of people. Should you be elected governor, will you look to increase the majority of people who agree with you in the legislature so that you can actually get things done and not be overridden so easily as Charlie Baker has been and past governors on the Republican side have in the past? Do you have a plan to, I know it's a big undertaking, but to try to increase the number of reps and senators who will work with you when you're the governor of Massachusetts?
Sure. When I was up on Beacon Hill, it was important to make sure that we have divided government. And I don't mean divisive government. I mean divided. It's good to have Republican voices as well as Democrat voices so that there is debate on key issues. And, it's not just a rubber stamp. If Maura Healey gets in, it will be all Democrats in the House and Senate, the supermajority, with another Democrat governor. That basically means that there will be no debate on things that at least Charlie Baker was able to say no on with a veto. And then, again, if the legislature felt it was important, they overrode him, but at least he was able to call attention to key issues. I've always been willing to help other candidates who are running for office. When I ran in 2010 for the state legislature, I was helped by people who, just felt that it was important to get a balance of voices up on Beacon Hill to have that discussion. But again, it's not necessarily my job to help people running. I'm happy to help those who want to serve in office. But again, my job as governor is more to focus on what's important for the cities and towns across Massachusetts, and especially during these difficult economic times when inflation is so high, when mortgage rates are going up, the cost of food is extremely expensive, obviously fuel, and those fuel costs are basically the fault of Joe Biden, who came into office and decided to take us off our energy independent path that we had already. Maura Healey's made it worse by blocking 2 pipelines, natural gas pipelines that come into Massachusetts. So we're about to see electricity spike up 64% in cost next month. That is something that's making Massachusetts very unaffordable, and that's something that is driving people out of our state. We lost 50,000 people. 50,000 people left Massachusetts last year because they just feel like they can't afford to stay in our state. So my job is, again, I think primarily to make sure that I'm looking out for this interest of the hardworking families out there so that they can, pay the bills, afford their home, send their kids to the schools they want to go to, and hopefully have enough money left over for retirement someday when they want to stay in Massachusetts.
We're speaking with former Representative Geoff Deihl, who's the Republican nominee for governor. So, Geoff, you talked about Maura Healey's. You're tying Maura Healey to Joe Biden. She's a Democrat. Joe Biden's a Democrat.
Well, she did endorse him.
Yeah, of course. No, of course you did. You endorsed Donald Trump. You were his campaign co-chair in 2016. I'm assuming in 2020 as well. He endorsed you in this. He endorsed you in the primary. A lot of people say that's a big reason that why you won the primary, because Donald Trump's still a very popular name in the Republican Party in Massachusetts. It's not a very popular. He's not a very popular president statewide. Do you? Do you still, even after all of the January 6th and now what's happening at Mar-a-Lago, are you still proud of your relationship with former President Trump?
Well, first of all, what happened on January 6th, it was a disaster. I mean, that's something that should never happen in our democracy, and it's very upsetting. Anybody who is involved in that certainly should be punished if it's found that they did something wrong. So I totally agree with that. But I also feel like what happened in 2020 with the riots around the entire country, there was cities that were literally burning. You had Minneapolis, you had Portland, federal buildings being broken into and burned. Even in Boston, we had police officers. 9 of them went to the hospital after being shot at. We had police cruisers on fire on Tremont Street. And Maura Healey said during that time, during 2020 riots, she was asked during a Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce meeting what she thought about it. She said, yes, America's burning, but that's how forests grow. That is not how democracy works in Massachusetts or around the rest of the country. You should not be celebrating arson and looting and murder of people who are trying to protect their businesses. And yet that's what she said. At a time when we needed to heal, she was talking about basically stoking the anger and division that was causing the riots. So, she's tried to walk back those questions, but to be honest with you, that was really disappointing. And look, she's endorsed Joe Biden. He gave a speech in Philadelphia a few weeks ago that said that anybody who voted against him in 2020 is an enemy of the state. That's what he said. And yet he also promoted himself as one of the great people that was going to try to bring our country back together. He's done the opposite. So quite honestly, I think we've got real questions about, Maura Healey and Joe Biden. And I think that's what's going to be, people are going to be talking about, not a president that's been out of office for 2 years.
So we'll speak with Geoff Deihl, who's a Republican candidate for governor of Massachusetts. So Geoff, you indicated, talked about the support of the police, things of that nature. Give people your opinion of law enforcement professionals and how you'll treat them when you're the governor of Massachusetts.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. You don't really hear the words defund the police or get rid of qualified immunity anymore, and that's because it's an election year. But again, you've had Massachusetts Democrats who have the supermajority in the House and Senate up on Beacon Hill that were openly talking about that a while ago. And now what we're seeing is a problem in recruiting not only state police officers, but also municipal police officers around the state. It's hard to get people to want to even be a police officer anymore. We're understaffed just about everywhere, and that's causing public safety issues. It's just really hard to believe that even discussion took place. I understand that there are police officers who need to be held accountable, but anybody who was involved in the George Floyd situation has been prosecuted, has gone to jail, or is in the process of what's going on with the legal outcomes of their cases. Fact of the matter is, law enforcement officials every day go out there and try to protect our communities. What they do in 10 seconds, the decision they make in 10 seconds gets litigated for 10 years in the courts. So I'm always trying to make sure that we give them the respect they deserve for going out there and putting their lives on the line, and also trying to uphold justice and keep our communities and our state safe. And one of the things I want to make sure that they feel empowered to do is also go after the drug dealing that's happening. We had the highest number of overdose deaths in Massachusetts in our state's history just this last year. So we need to make sure that the fentanyl, the heroin that's being dealt, we track it down and we hold those people accountable and we prosecute them. So again, I want to thank the officers for the work they do on the front line every day to do that. And I think that's just going to be a very important thing going forward, as well as also providing people with addiction issues the recovery and mental health services they need.
So we're speaking with former Representative Geoff Deihl, who's the Republican nominee for Massachusetts governor. So, Rep. Deihl, going back to the debate last week, towards the end, they were asking you and Attorney General Healey to give a letter grade to Charlie Baker. Maura Healey said something along the lines of he did a very good job or a pretty good job. She didn't want to give a letter grade, but you gave Charlie Baker a B, which means you think he was a good governor, and in fact, he was the most popular governor in the country for most of his 8-year tenure here. So if you gave Charlie Baker a B, I'm curious to know why you decided to primary him.
Yeah, look, first of all, again, Charlie Baker's the one that decided not to run again. I mean,
but you jumped in before he made that decision, Rep. Deihl.
Sure. I think it's important to have a conversation in the Republican side and Democrat side for who should be the nominee for the final general election. For Maura Healey, she had no opposition. Sonia Chang Diaz decided to drop out, so there really hasn't been a discussion on the Democrat side about who's the best candidate. I think everybody just decided they would consolidate around her. But I always, again, thought that it's important to make sure that people have that choice. And so, again, for me, it's something where I've supported Charlie Baker in 2010, 2014, 2018 when he ran again for re-election then. Maura Healey seems to think that she's, agrees with Charlie if you listen to that debate on a lot of issues, but I doubt she ever voted for him. So, you can agree all you want, but I mean, if you don't vote for him, I mean, how much are you really with him? I've been with Charlie Baker on issues way more than she has. In fact, she says she wants to cut taxes along the lines of what the Charlie Baker tax cuts that he promoted at the end of this legislative cycle. And, at the same time, she's for question one, where she wants to add an additional 4% for anybody who's been successful in the state, basically punishing people who do well economically in Massachusetts. So she wants this in one corner of the mouth, she's saying she wants to cut taxes, but out of the other side of her mouth, she wants to raise taxes. She's for question one. So again, you can't have it both ways. You like Charlie, but you've never voted for him. You want to cut taxes, but you want to raise taxes. That's what Maura Healey is about. Whatever's expedient to say at the time. I've got a track record of cutting taxes. Back in 2014, I led the repeal of the indexing of our gas tax to inflation. And by the way, if we hadn't done that, we'd be like California with the cost of gas in Massachusetts right now, because it wouldn't be just the cost of the fuel. It would be the tax that would be going up on it just from being tied to inflation, which is at a 40-year record high right now.
We're speaking with Geoff Deihl, who's the Republican nominee for governor of Massachusetts. Geoff, you brought up question one. I was going to bring it up anyway, but so we know your position on that, thankfully. On the driver's license bill for illegal aliens, it's another bill that Charlie Baker vetoed, but the legislature overrode him. I assume Maura Healey is in favor of giving illegal...
She spoke out in favor of it at the debate.
Okay, so she spoke out in favor of it. How do you feel about giving driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants here in Massachusetts?
So, we have a border crisis right now that's been exacerbated by the Biden administration since he's been in office. And Maura Healey's done nothing to try to abate that as Attorney General. In fact, what we've got in Massachusetts is thousands of people that come into our state who need state services. And I totally want to support people who want to become citizens of Massachusetts and come here for all the right reasons. But unfortunately, a lot of people who come here... And by the way, I support people who are refugees. I support people who are on H-1B visas, or people who are here on a work visa or a green card. That's great. They at least are documented and trying to get a path to citizenship. But there are a population of people that are unwilling to try to become citizens, and that's what basically the legislature wants to reward right now. Governor Baker did veto this bill because there's two major reasons with giving driver's licenses to illegals. And by the way, he tried to find an accommodation where maybe it wouldn't be an official driver's license, but some sort of driver certification. What ended up happening was they overrode him anyway over his objections, and two of them that I thought were very valid. One is that the RMV of Massachusetts is not the vehicle by which sensitive foreign documents should be processed. Currently, the RMV has had problems dealing with just out-of-state violation suspensions. We saw 7 Marines in New Hampshire that were killed by someone who should have had their Massachusetts driver's license suspended, but there was boxes and boxes of unprocessed out-of-state violations. We saw a pretty famous picture. I don't know if you've seen it online. But anyway, the other thing, too, is that the 2020 motor voter law of Massachusetts automatically puts people on voter rolls if they get a Massachusetts driver's license. And that was another reason that Governor Baker cited as a problem that he had. If you're here illegally, you should not be put onto voter rolls. That creates some potential voter issues down the road, voter fraud issues.
Well, Rep Deihl, I mean, you know that there's been, for the last 30 years, there's been people who are non-voting residents that have been able to get their driver's licenses through green cards. And the question I have is, I know you're against this law as it's written now. Are you against the prospect of giving undocumented residents of the Commonwealth driver's licenses entirely, or do you think that there should be another way to do it?
First of all, I think that the goal should be to fix immigration. You know, when I was a state rep, I actually filed language that would allow Massachusetts to help speed up immigration, because that's the big problem. You've got people coming here and they sit on a waiting list to get processed 10, 15 years in some cases. We have 50,000 people, like I said, who left our state. We certainly could use people coming to Massachusetts, but let's have them come here for the right reasons. When you say that you're going to have sanctuary status, which several Massachusetts cities and towns do, you basically are creating an advertisement to people who come into the country illegally and then come to Massachusetts because they know that they will be protected in those towns from any prosecution by or deportation by federal officials, even if they've committed crimes in our state. So that's a problem. I don't want to reward people who've broken the law with a privilege that, you know, again, citizens and people who've come here legally and are in the process of being documented, those people are the ones that deserve driver's licenses. I think this is a mistake.
So go ahead.
So Geoff, I was going to ask you, people listening to you right now, maybe they didn't vote for you in the primary, or maybe they voted for you over the years. If they wanted to find out more about your campaign and what you're doing, how do they find out?
Yep. So my running mate her name is Leah Allen. And so our website that we have is deihallen.com. So they can go to www.deihallen.com. And what you'll find at that website is information about where we stand on all issues, which is, you know, I think important, videos. And then the other thing we have, too, is a place where if you want to get engaging in the campaign, we can put you to work as a volunteer, a poll watcher, or as somebody who holds signs.
Poll watcher?
Sure. Yeah, no, if anybody wants to go and make sure that, you know, we've had a history in Massachusetts of people going to watch the polls on both sides of the aisle. I think it's important. Yeah. So the thing is, you can volunteer to help with the campaign, obviously standouts and things like that, holding signs, but also you can donate, which obviously we would appreciate, or you can get request lawn signs, or you can get campaign gear. So a pretty interactive website. I think people will enjoy it.
So, Rep Deihl, I appreciate you coming on and talking with us. Before I let you go, I've got to ask, you know, I know you've seen the polling that shows you optimistically 18 points behind, pessimistically 30 points behind Attorney General Healy. A lot of people feel as though this is a coronation. How do you plan on making up that gap?
Sure. Well, I mean, 3 days after I won the primary, Emerson College came out with a poll that put me up over Maura Healey by 6 points with independents. And in Massachusetts, independents make up 57% of the electorate. When the top line issue of the economy was asked, it was actually a 16-point lead over Maura Healey. So I actually think that in the demographic that we're going for, which is, again, not just Republican or Democrat, but actually just the wide range of all citizens, we feel like we're actually doing very well. And look, Scott Brown, back in 2010, when he won that U.S. Senate seat, he was down 40 points when he announced. He was down 15 points a week to go before January 10th, and he ended up winning by 7 points. So obviously, as people start to pay more attention to the race once the second debate is over, I think we're going to get an even greater, bump in the awareness and support. So, look, this thing is still weeks away from the election. I'm very excited that we've been able to get to this point, and I obviously want to make sure that we win this thing.
When is that next debate?
It is going to be this Thursday, and it is on Channel 5 at 8 p.m.
All right. Representative Geoff Deihl, DealAllen.com, you said?
That's right.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Rep. Deihl. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Take care.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Let's take a break now. I thought he did fairly well. I'm still not satisfied, honestly, on his answers on Dobbs and Roe v. Wade and all of that, but that's, it's where I stand. I don't know where, it depends on if that's where most of the voters stand. 508-996-0500.
I actually, Marcus, before we move on, this is not really one of my big issues, but I did see a thing on Meet the Press this weekend where they said, I thought it was kind of interesting, particularly where Massachusetts and Rhode Island are considered blue states, very blue states. They said that the polling shows that in blue states where states are securing abortion rights, that they're not as much of an issue to the voters in this midterm election.
Yeah,
I thought it was a woman pollster from the Hill. I think she was. Oh no, the Cook Report.
Okay.
And she
They're
said
pretty good. Cook Political Report.
Yeah. She said that people who are in states, which is obviously different than Kansas, right? Like Massachusetts and Rhode Island, that are blue states, feel secure in their abortion rights. So it's not as much of an issue for the general election.
Sure.
In that thing, I thought that was a pretty
interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty sophisticated way to look at it. I'd be curious on the polling on that, just how they got down that deep into people's minds. But
yeah, what kind of questions were asked?
Yeah.
508-996-0500. Let's actually go to the phones. Good evening. You're live.
Good evening. I wanted to thank you guys again for having the candidates on,
Sure,
letting us hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
I didn't realize ahead of time that we wouldn't be able to call in with questions, but I appreciate that Deihl made a little time to call in, even if it was over the phone. And he's got a lot of area to cover.
Mm-hmm.
But did he refuse to come into the studio and take questions?
It wasn't a matter of refuse or not refuse. I basically, I said you could come in or call in. They opted to call in. I didn't say, no, you have to. And he said, no, that wasn't a requirement that I had made. I had that during the primary, but during the general, I know people got to be all over the place at once. So I made it a bit more, I laxed those requirements.
We recognize it's easier for him to pick up the phone and call than to drive down. But look, I think he did a nice job. He made his case. I wanted to give him a real shot at making his case. I didn't vote for him in the primary. It doesn't really matter what I did. But now he's the nominee, and so let's give him a shot.
Right, but it doesn't matter what you did in the primary. But it does matter at this point because I think all the points he made about Healy were true and accurate as far as what she did in the past and what she will plan to do in the future. And I think it matters, because I know the other night you said you'll vote for Healy. Now, I think that's a big leap from...
You did say that, yes.
I did say that.
From him, then to Doty, then to Healy. And I think to myself, that completely doesn't make sense to me that you would call yourself a Republican and not... And then
well, listen, I'll just tell you this. I've done more for the Republican Party than Geoff Deihl ever has. And it's not about me and Geoff Deihl. And I'm not going to beat up on the guy again because I think I've done enough of it. I just don't feel, and here I go, that he's got the qualifications, the ability to be the governor of Massachusetts. I don't think that, given his performance in this campaign, that he can attract the kind of really good, talented people that he needs to.
Look what we got going on in the White House. Do you feel that anybody in the administration, in the cabinet, and who the president attracted was great for this country in any kind of
entirely
way?
do not. No. But I think
So there you have it. So you're going to get somebody that's running the country.
Yeah, but I think Maura Healey's vastly more talented than Joe Biden, quite frankly.
More talented.
At this juncture in Joe Biden's life.
Her policies are going to align with this. Her policies are going to completely align with what's going on nationwide, and that's why it's so hard for me to see you or anybody else making the leap from him instead of giving him a chance and hoping that.
Well, yeah, but let me just tell you,
it's not just you can't just give somebody a chance. You get 4 years to run the entire Commonwealth. You've got to be pretty sure about who you're voting for.
Look, I've hired people.
We're sure that the country's being run into the ground, and Maura Healey's going to be on board with that.
I think to blame all the country's problems solely on Joe Biden is frankly pretty partisan.
I didn't say Joe Biden. I said the entire cabinet, the entire administration.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Same thing. You're arguing semantics now. You're arguing semantics.
So.
No, it's not semantics. It's entirely everybody that's on board with that.
So here's the thing.
So
Geoff Deihl, also, quite frankly, and again, I remember you brought it up. So Geoff Deihl made some horrible allegations against my very good friend Howie Carr, where he said that because Howie accepted advertising money from Doty, that therefore he was in the tank for Doty and basically accepted bribes. And that is something that is not true, and it's something that every radio show, including myself, is vulnerable to. Geoff Deihl didn't raise the money. Chris Doty had the money. The fact that he advertised on the Howie Carr show, then Geoff Deihl, because he couldn't advertise, because he couldn't raise the money, turned around and accused Howie Carr of taking bribes. And I thought it was a reckless charge, a despicable charge to be made against a friend of mine who's done more for me.
But did he use the word bribes, or did he say he's in the tank with them, and then
he said
advertising with them?
No. He said you sold out. You took money from Doty. You sold out.
Hey, listen, we got to take this break. So
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to take the break. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Sorry, we're going to take this break. We'll be right back. If you're on the line, stay on the line.
Listen to us live. And
you know what Leo DiCaprio told Timothy Chalamet is that he said is a young up and coming actor who's nominated for an Oscar. He told him no hard drugs and no superhero movies.
I like that.
Yeah, I thought it was good. He put his arm around him and said no hard drugs and no superhero movies. That was good advice. All right, 508-996-0500. We just had governor candidate Geoff Deihl on. We're taking your calls, 508-996-0500. Hey, Hank.
What's happening?
How you doing?
Timing is everything in your world. I wanted to be the first caller after the governor candidate called and say what a remarkable job you guys did being so fair to him. I was very, very impressed. But your last caller just pushed all of Chris's buttons.
That's all right.
Threw my comments right out the door. But you guys did a great job. I think he did a really good job, especially with some of the questions you asked Marcus. He handled it well. I'm kind of with Chris on that. Does that mean he can run the state of Massachusetts? I'll say I don't know. Chris will say absolutely not, but I'll say I don't know. But you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Can I just real quick just ask you what's the details for the sheriff's debate coming up?
Sure.
Can you just fill us in on that?
So the sheriff's debate is Wednesday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's commercial free. 7 to 8 is that's mostly going to be moderated by us. We're going to ask some questions of Mayor Hurrow and Sheriff Hodgson, and we're going to give them an opportunity to each ask each other a question as well at the end. And then in the second hour, it's going to be all phone calls. So we're going to be cycling through all the calls that are going to come in, and the caller has an opportunity to ask both candidates a question or one of the candidates a question.
Yeah, we just can't build our questions up. I know how you are, Marcus. But can we have front row parking in front of the windows with popcorn like a movie theater and watch you guys?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Absolutely.
I'll be there. Go shirtless, guys. Thank you very much. You guys are doing a good job. Later.
Thanks, Hank. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we can be like a drive-in theater.
I don't own the parking lot, so
People
you can do whatever you want. Yeah,
right.
Do whatever you want. It's not my
pull up and look at us.
Yeah,
we're good to look at.
Popcorn at 99 over here.
There you go.
And I always say you get the cheese and crackers.
That's the rookie move to get the popcorn.
Rookie moves to get the popcorn. If you go to 99, I've been doing this since the 90s. You get the cheese and crackers. It's really good. It still is. Let's actually take a break so we can finish out the hour strong.
Plus, by the way, if you eat the salty popcorn, it's only so you'll drink more beer.
Right.
Yeah. That's a rookie move.
Rookie move.
Hey, welcome back. So, Marcus, we've got the big debate on Wednesday. Somebody mentioned, so we're going to have some to fill some time after the election, right? I mean, after the elections, there'll be the fallout, there'll be the appointments, there'll be all that stuff.
I'm taking a break.
Marcus is taking a break.
I'm taking a break.
From all your worries.
I'll be back in
January?
No, let's say like April for the town elections. And then I'll probably come back and then when signatures are due in New Bedford, I'll come back on then. And that's
in the meantime, you'll miss a fabulous interview by Michelle McPhee. Well, I talked to Michelle. She used to be a regular with me on the air before I got sick, and so she'll be back on. She's out in California now. But somebody had asked about the Whitey Bulger case. And she's giving interviews now on that case.
Yeah, I remember when she was on with you and you had the Chris McCarthy show, and that was great. I was actually here for one of those interviews. She was really good. The breadth of knowledge was really interesting.
She's got some very good, interesting sources on the Whitey Bulger murder.
And I've got some things I want to talk about too. I'm talking to people in the field of there's an issue going on with special education. So I've been talking to different people in the field. I do have issues. People have come up to me like, hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. And I say, after the election.
Right. Yeah. No, we're trying to get you folks to get out to the election. Mm-hmm. Our sole focus, everything we're doing is to motivate you to go vote. Right? I don't care who you vote for. I want you to show up.
Simpsons episode where the anchor blames that everything's going everything's chaotic because I'm placing the blame on you, the viewer.
Right? I like that.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is we've got to have a higher turnout in the city. We've got to have a higher turnout in the town.
5th lowest turnout in the primary.
It's not good.
It's very not good.
And by the way, some days I feel like Marcus and I are the only ones trying.
We are the only ones trying.
To get people to go vote.
We are the only ones trying.
And that's fine. But if you think I'm going to eat the blame, you're crazy.
Right.
Just to understand this. I'm doing everything I can so that I can feel very comfortable pointing out everything you didn't do. All right?
So
just remember that.
So anyway,
and like all elections, you can't get back the time you lost, right? I mean, it's a finite amount of resources. Everyone has an equal amount of in election campaigns. So if you're not doing what you're supposed to do to get out the vote, to get the people of New Bedford to go to vote, that's on you.
So, I mean, just to talk about, other stuff we've got going on, things that I have in the works. I've talked with Rep. Conley up in Cambridge, and, he has that law that's going to, that attempts to put a cap on what you can collect in tax rebates from 62F. I just talked to him today. He's going to come on at some point soon and talk about that. I think that's still a very interesting development. I remember we broke some statewide news here on 62F when we had Chairman Roderickson to talk about whether or not you're going to get those refund checks that were planned in the original economic development bill. You are not most likely not going to get those checks because of the $3 billion in 62F checks that are coming out. So there's still a lot to talk about with that. That's still a big issue, obviously. And so we're gonna have that. We're gonna have Rep. Conley on and a couple other candidates, and we're gonna have the DA's debate in a couple weeks too. The Plymouth County DA's debate too.
I think that's going to be fantastic. There's a real difference between those two candidates, and.
Much like the sheriff's race.
Right, very much so.
Yeah.
And you have even I would say even more of a difference.
Yeah.
Between those two guys, maybe generationally, certainly they have different backgrounds.
I would say more of a difference too. I agree. Yeah. No, I would agree with that.
And so, but it's the only place you're going to be able to hear it is here.
Yeah.
And again, that's Mattapoisett, Rochester, Lakeville, Marion, Wareham. Your district attorney's race. Plymouth, all Plymouth County.
We have Plymouth. We have Plymouth.
That's right. We have a lot of listeners in Plymouth.
We have a lot of listeners in Plymouth, Middleborough, Carver. So if you're in there, if you're over there, and we have a robust digital listenership really throughout the Commonwealth. But I'm saying the lion's share of our satellite and our listenership, I think the southern half of Bristol County, I think you're really if you drive down a few miles down Route 6 in Mattapoisett, you see a big Tim Cruz billboard. Actually, This is your DA, Tim Cruz. So, and I've seen Rasan Hall signs too on Route 6. So, it's something people around here are definitely paying attention to.
And folks, if you miss any of the show from time to time, that's going to happen. You can always go get the whole thing for free on our podcast.
I'm literally uploading the podcast as we speak. So a couple minutes after we sign off today, you'll have the full episodes available. The last 2 hours are already available on podcast, anywhere where podcasts are offered.
And you know something, Marcus? I don't know if people realize this. If you call into the program, you'll be on the podcast.
You will.
Right? So if you call in, you make a comment, a fun one, a bad one, whatever, make fun of one of us, whatever, and then you send it to your friends, it'll be just like you're on the show.
And you can put on your resume, podcaster.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry. I think that's pretty much it. Chris, that's it. We're got tomorrow, and then Wednesday's the big debate. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll have a fun show, and then we'll be here for the debate on Wednesday.
Should be great.